Today is Monday, November 11th. I took my first 2 trades of the Futures Challenge last week. Before I get into the Futures Challenge, I do want to provide an update regarding the Forex Challenge. I ended up breaching the inactivity rule. I thought I had an extra week, but I didn't. So I ended up failing the challenge because I was inactive. That's totally my fault, so I'll take it as a loss. I did fail the Forex challenge. I do want to try Forex again in the future, but for now, I think it's better for me to just focus on this futures challenge. For the prop firm, I decided to go with Topstep. I'm not affiliated with them. I've just heard really great things about them, and I see a lot of people trade with them. So I chose the $50,000 funded challenge. And with Topstep, it's a little different than with Blue Guardian. So with Blue Guardian, you buy the challenge and then you take it. With Topstep, it's a monthly fee. The monthly cost will depend on how much you're getting funded or how much you want to get funded. So for the $50,000 combine or challenge, it's $49 a month. And the $49 a month stops once you get funded. But once you get funded, there is a $149 activation fee. Thought that'd be helpful to share in case some of you want to try out Topstep if you're not using them already. And so the rules for the challenge are pretty simple. The profit target to get funded is $3,000. Maximum daily loss is $1,000. And then the maximum loss for the challenge is $2,000. So pretty much we need to hit $3,000 and we cannot lose $2,000 during this challenge, or else the account will reset, I believe. I'm not 100% sure how that reset works. I have to look into that. I did take 2 trades this past week. So the first trade, I won $152. And then the second trade, I lost $144. And as you can see, our balance here is $50,005.78. Regarding the trades, for the first one, I risked 1 contract. And for the second one, I risked 2 contracts. There wasn't really a reason behind this. I thought I understood the risk, but I think I misunderstood something. And you'll probably see my confusion when you watch the live trades. I did look into this and I want to clear this up now before we get into the live recording so you guys aren't confused. Moving over to this Google Doc. So for MNQ, it's a little different than Forex. With MNQ, there are ticks and points. So 4 ticks equals 1 point. And a 1 tick move is equivalent to 50 cents for MNQ. A 1 point move is equivalent to $2. And you get that by multiplying the 4 ticks by the 50 cents. So from my own understanding for MNQ, it looks like it's a movement based by the number of points that MNQ moves. And your risk will be correlated to the points. And so just an example to better explain that, let's say that you risk 20 points since your stop loss is 20 points. If you decide to risk 1 contract, that would be equivalent to you risking $40 because the 20 points times the $2 per point is $40. If you decide to risk 2 contracts, that would be equivalent to $80 because the 20 points times the $2 times the 2 contracts would be $80. And then for the 5 contracts, it would be about $200. And that's from the 20 points times the $2 times the 5 contracts. And so again, the dollar amount risk is correlated to the number of points your stop loss is. At least that's what it looks like to me. And you can add contracts so you can increase your risk or make more. So the biggest takeaway for me, and something I'm going to look into this week, I need to be intentional when setting my stop loss. So if you see my trades, my stop losses were pretty big. I based these stop losses off of my back testing, but something I want to do this week is go through my back tested trades and see if there's an average stop loss. So like, let's say like most of my trades, the stop loss was about like 30 points or something like that. And just keeping an average stop loss to set so that I'm aware of my risk and it's easier for me. But yeah, that's definitely a big takeaway for me, and it's something I want to look into. I also want to look into some commonalities between winning trades. An important part of being a trader is knowing when to trade and when not to trade. And so something that traders do is that they'll prioritize high probability setups and they'll trade when those high probability setups take place. And so something I want to do is look at my back testing results and look at the winning trades and see if there's something that they have in common that can be used to determine if this trade is higher probability or lower probability. So bottom line, I want to go through all the trades I back tested and just refine that stop loss and see if there are high probability traits between the winners. I encourage you to keep these points in mind as you watch live execution of these trades. But yeah, definitely am more knowledgeable now than I was at the time. So excuse me if I say anything incorrectly or, struggling too much. But yeah, all right, I'm going to play the live recording now. Today is Tuesday, November 5th. I do see a potential setup. So going over to checklist over here, the first one, mark out 9:50 and 11:15 a.m. on the charts. We see here This is 9:50 and this is 11:15 a.m. So check. Wait for an inverse fair value gap to form within this time window. So I do see a potential setup here, and I do have the 15-minute and the 5-minute side by side. So we could see that price is reacting to a 15-minute fair value gap after taking liquidity into this zone. The 15-minute chart is currently in a market maker buy model. So this is the target that I have marked. So we see a fair value gap here, and then a potential fair value gap here, and the overlap between these two would be here. So if price closes, I'm going to market order, and it did. So I'm still trying to get used to Topstep. Let me market order.
Order filled.
Okay, so I marketed that. Still trying to get used to this. I want to set my stop loss. I'm gonna have to watch a bunch of tutorials because I have no idea how to find the orders panel. So I guess I'm just gonna have to watch the trade manually. But yeah, just going back to the checklist here, now that it's filled, the inverse fair value gap did form. So I'm gonna check that off. And again, we can see here that this is the overlap that I look for. So I do look for the fair value gaps to have some kind of overlap like this. So I'm still in the middle back testing, but so far I back tested from mid-July to the end of September. I still have to back test October, but this strategy had a win rate of about 40% at a 1 to 2 risk to reward. I believe that's still profitable. I do want to forward test it for myself just to see. Coming back to the checklist, once an inverse fair value gap forms, place a trade with stop loss covering the entry fair value gap and targeting 2R, which I did. Here I actually market ordered because I noticed with my back test that price won't always come back to the fair value gap, and so just to get in on the trade would market order after the fair value gap forms. I'm gonna try to figure out how to place a stop loss because I don't like that it's not here, but in the event that I can't figure it out, I'm gonna watch a tutorial, but I'll just manage this and aim not to lose more than 1% on this trade, which is about $500. So close out the trade if I either hit $500 or if we hit 2R. We just adjust it here in 15-minute. My target's up here. Like that's at least where I want to close out the trade because that is 2RR. So the last part of the rules, if price disrespects the entry fair value gap by closing above or below it, exit the trade. Or if price reaches 1RR, move stop loss to break even. Well, I don't have a stop loss, but if I did, believe 1R would be like around here. So I would be looking to move it, but that's if price continues up. I'll be back with an update if any of those things happen. It's 12:18, price just hit my take profit. So I'm going to go ahead and close this trade out.
Order fill.
We just won $151.26. So the new balance is $50,151.26. Today is Wednesday, November 6th. So I do see a potential setup here, and I did want to go through the checklist. So starting with the first step, mark out 9:50 and 11:15 a.m. on the chart. You can see we did here. So it's 9:50 and 11:15. We could check that. Wait for an inverse fair value gap to form within this time window. Small gaps count. Very slight, but I did count small gaps in my back test. And so this overlaps with this fair value gap. Because there is an overlap within this time window of 9:50 to 11:15 a.m., this is valid for me. So I'm going to go ahead and place a market order here. I do want to revisit the risk, but since I'm still trying to get used to Topstep and stuff, I'm going to start with just 2 contracts because I want to play it safe, honestly.
Order fill.
All right, so I just sold 2 contracts. Could set the take profit and stop loss by just dragging it. And I'm going to set my take profit. I'm going to try to draw out the pair. Just put it where my stop loss is. It's about a 1.43 risk to reward. Probably going to want to move this down a bit. Hit 2R. Do it. I do like that you can drag this. It's pretty cool. For 2R. Just going back to this checklist, there was an inverse fair value gap that formed within the time window. And it was small, but it does count because I did count that in my back test. And then once an inverse fair value gap forms, place a trade with stop loss covering the entry fair value gap targeting 2R. And so I did place that trade here. It was placed here. Now that we're in this trade, we need to observe price. So if price disrespects the entry fair value gap by closing above or below it, exit the trade. Or if price reaches 1 risk to reward, move the stop loss to break even. So if either of these two happens, then I will either close out the trade or move the stop loss. And just coming back to Topstep X, this is how the trade currently looks. So I'm going to continue to watch this trade. I'm going to stop filming now. If price reaches 1 risk to reward, I'll move the stop loss to break even. If price disrespects the entry fair value gap, which is going to be this fair value gap here, if it closes above it, then I will exit the trade. I will record that when that happens. It is 11:04 a.m. Price is around the 1 risk to reward mark. I'm going to wait for it to close below before I move the stop to break even. It's exactly 11:30. Price is currently at the entry fair value gap. It looks like it's probably going to close above it. And when it does, I'm going to close out of this trade for a partial loss. So it is 11:32. Price has pretty much disrespected the entry fair value gap. I am going to close out the trade now for a partial loss.
Order filled.
So today we took a loss of $144.